Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's a startling statistic. More young children die from drowning than any other cause of death in the United States. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today, county leaders gathered in Oceanside to highlight the danger on World Drowning Prevention Day. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen has the story.
During the dog days of summer, there's nothing better for a kid than to splash around in the pool. But that's also where the danger lies. It's something 7-year-old Kaiser Bess knows all about.
Because, like, if you can't swim, then you can drown, and then from drowning, you could die.
He's been taking lessons since he was 4 years old.
I think my mom just signed me up without me knowing.
But as County Supervisor Jim Desmond notes, not everyone can afford swimming lessons.
The CDC has said that 79% of children in households with incomes less than $50,000 a year have little to no swimming ability.
Desmond says the county has given hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants to various organizations for them to give free swimming lessons.
This is an effort that I've prioritized here at the county, along with Chair Nora Vargas.
According to the CDC, drowning is the leading cause of death for children under 4 and the second leading cause of death for children under 14.
We go to the beach a lot, so it's important for them to know how to swim.
Carla Garrett says she enrolls her son in swimming classes for her peace of mind, and her son Wyatt likes it too.
Because it's fun, I like the water.
Swim instructor Mara Davis says it's important to get children comfortable in the water as early as possible so they don't panic. So what's the best technique for children to prevent drowning?
Floating. Definitely back floats would be the best thing, because if you can do a back float, you can kind of lay there for as long as you need. It takes no effort, no energy.
The more exposure children have to the water, the more enjoyable the experience can be.
I just like it. It's fun.
But remember, children should not be left unattended near water. A child can drown in as little as 20 seconds. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Well, the big story has been the heat, and we're certainly cranking it up still. Now, these heat advisories and warnings do go out through Wednesday evening, and we are tracking how high temperatures are planning to go. But first, let's look at where we have that excessive heat warning. A little further inland, including Westmoreland, towards the deserts. That's where we're going to be experiencing extreme heat. How hot do temperatures go over these next few days? Well, we'll tell you that in just a bit.
In Encinitas tonight, there is hope of affordable housing for some private school teachers. The project will start small and could someday offer dozens of new units. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has the story from North County.
Tomorrow we're going to start with fractions, decimals, and percents.
Ryan Stevens is about to start his second year as a computer science and engineering teacher here at the Grower School in Encinitas. This week, students are taking part in summer enrichment camps, learning from video games and creating ceramics. During the school year, the Grower campus has a capacity of just 160 students in 7th through 12th grade. 25% of them receive financial aid to pay the $28,000 annual tuition. It's a steep price in an exclusive area of North County. Stevens had to consider whether he could afford to take the job and still meet his basic needs. Then came news from the administration about a long-term plan of sustainability.
Just that sense of stability and relief makes it a lot easier. There's a lot less stress when you're going into work or when you're trying to, plan lessons. You don't have to worry about Where am I going to be living in the next month?
Thanks to a $4.5 million grant from the Luddy Family Foundation, the school will soon be fully solar powered, and endowments have been established to provide up to 50% of students with fully paid tuition in the future. The school sits on 5 acres of prime Encinitas land. Some of the grant money will go to purchase an additional acre with some prime property on it.
And right in the middle of them, there's another tree that's a little more rounded.
Stuart Grauer is the founder of the private school, who points out the progress he plans to make in growing opportunities for students and their teachers. Just a short walk away, this acre of land will become affordable housing for qualified staff. What is currently a ranch house and granny flat will be reconstructed into 3 housing units with room for 3 more by next year.
By owning the property lock, stock, as we do through this amazing gift, we can adjust the amount of pay for these dwelling units towards what's not only affordable for young starting teachers, but even what will enable them to save for 2-3 years, get established in the community, and then strike out on their own.
That's a promise and a lesson Ryan Stevens hopes lasts him a lifetime. MG Perez, KPBS News.
UPS and the Teamsters Union reached a tentative deal that could avoid a devastating strike at a crucial time for U.S. consumer spending. Here's Karen Kafa with a look at what's next and what's at stake.
UPS and the Teamsters Union said they've reached a tentative deal on a new contract for about 330,000 UPS employees who prepared to walk out next week.
This is good. This is a start.
Those workers need to ratify the deal to avoid a work stoppage that would hit in the middle of the back-to-school shopping season, which the National Retail Federation estimates will generate $41.5 billion in spending. NRF says supply chain crises sparked by the COVID-19 pandemic prompted retailers to better anticipate disruptions.
We're obviously in the middle of back to school. That product is on shelves and stocked already. Heading into holiday, we know retailers are already in a good place with inventory and thinking ahead.
And consumers adapted too, starting shopping early to find deals to counter inflation and to get what they want.
There's a lot of tools out there. We know consumers have become adept at using them, and retailers have certainly built in their own systems for communicating with their shoppers about what is available and when and how long it might take to get to them.
UPS handled an average of 20.8 million domestic packages a day last year. Anderson Economic Group estimated a 10-day UPS strike would cost the U.S. economy $7.1 billion.
While the Postal Service and FedEx and some other delivery channels may pick up some of the slack, there aren't enough options available to the businesses and consumers alike today to replace the volume that UPS handles.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
A federal judge has blocked the Biden administration's policy limiting asylum. The rule allows immigration authorities to deny asylum to many migrants who arrive at the border without applying online or seeking protection in a country that they pass through. The policy went into place when pandemic-era restrictions expired in May, and immigrant rights organizations then sued. The judge is giving the Biden administration 2 weeks to appeal. A local journalist's request to review the Chula Vista Police Department's drone footage is headed for a state appellate court. In 2021, Art Castaneras asked the department to turn over a month of footage in order to verify that police don't use drones to spy on residents. The agency refused on grounds that it was investigative. He sued, and a San Diego Superior Court judge sided with the police department. Castaneras appealed. Now the California 4th District Court of Appeal has agreed to hear the case.
If it's upheld the way that this district judge decided, it could include not just drone videos, but a lot of other videos and documents that the police say are investigative. And it's never been the standard.
Chula Vista city officials declined to comment. July is Uterine Fibroid Awareness Month. Black patients are diagnosed 3 times as often as white patients with these benign tumors and with more severe symptoms. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson spoke with one Rancho Bernardo resident who experienced this disparity firsthand.
I was on my honeymoon and I was experiencing what I thought was abdominal pain, and nothing was resolving the pain. And I mean, I was crunched down, holding my abdomen area, really not able to eat, move, walk.
It took months before Kia Edwards received a diagnosis, but she likely had the fibroids for much longer. She says she always had very painful, heavy periods, a common symptom, but the subject was taboo.
In the Black community, we don't talk about pain, we don't talk about sickness, we don't talk about things that we consider to be normal.
Edwards says there's also a lack of trust between Black people and physicians, a long history of medical racism, experimentation, and sterilization. And she points to research that physicians tend to take Black people's pain less seriously.
Limiting your next step of evaluating a patient because you think that we're lazy or we are just complaining.
By the time uterine fibroids are caught in Black patients, they tend to be more advanced. They are twice as likely as white patients to have their uterus removed instead of less invasive options. Edwards says she had to do her own research on which treatment would leave her with the greatest chances of conceiving a child. Evidence of her outcome hangs on her walls. Pictures of her sons, Asim and Ali.
They are my miracle babies.
Happy birthday to you. Edwards says she was lucky. She had good insurance. She took medical leave. She says she's breaking the silence not just for herself, but for people with less means to advocate for their uterine health, like those in foster care and prisons. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
There are currently 2,200 children in foster care in San Diego County. KPBS reporter Melissa May introduces us to a volunteer advocate who supports these vulnerable children in court and in life.
Court-appointed special advocates, better known as CASAs, are volunteers who speak up for foster youth.
Sometimes it's just going out and getting something to eat and talking, and that's enough. You know, they appreciate that time.
Marine veteran Jose Contreras has been a CASA volunteer for 5 years and helped 5 foster youth so far.
I didn't really plan on being so much a role model, but really that's what you end up being because you are the one person that's there one-on-one with them regularly, and they do start to look up to you.
When children are removed from their families, it can be a really scary time. And from the child's perspective, the CASA becomes a caring, consistent adult presence. Because of that unique relationship that they build, CASAs are also able to let judges, social workers, and other really important decision makers know if the child has any unmet needs.
The San Diego nonprofit Voices for Children trains volunteers like Contreras to become CASAs for foster children. Jessica Munoz is the president and CEO.
They get to singularly focus on one child or one sibling group at a time. A lot of our professional partners in child welfare are trying to meet the needs of lots of families at once. And so having a CASA volunteer assigned to a child gives that child and that family a person who's really focused on them and what they need.
About half of foster youth in San Diego County have CASA volunteers or case liaisons who support the children and make sure their needs are met.
I'm in a great place because of him. He's always been there for me. He's always going to be there for me.
The relationships they build can last years.
The child that I had in the first case, we started off at 10 years old when I first met him, and he just had his 15th birthday. His mom invited me to his 15th birthday, and it's great to be able to watch him grow up.
The best case scenario for a CASA helping a foster child is to reunite them with their family.
I think CASA Jose is really a shining example of that consistency and dedication. And it's also really special because he's a gentleman, and we always need more CASAs who are men. We have a lot of boys that we serve who would really love to have a male role model in their life.
Voices for Children says foster children with CASA volunteers are half as likely as their peers without CASAs to re-enter the child welfare system. Melissa May, KPBS News.
And Voices for Children is a broadcast sponsor of KPBS.
Well, start you off with your weather headlines. The big story, of course, has been the heat, and areas inland are still going to be hot. There's really no better way to put that. We are dealing with some low clouds and fog along the coast, and we are also tracking another round of monsoon to make an appearance into early next week. So let's look at where temperatures go tonight. We're dropping down to a low of 69 with that dense fog building, especially around San Diego. But then we also have these heat warnings and advisories out across the board, because by tomorrow things are really going to start to heat up yet again. We do have heat advisories further inland and from Wrightwood even down through Julian, Pine Valley. But then as we head closer towards the deserts, well, Borrego Springs, Westmoreland, we're going to be running under that excessive heat warning, meaning that it is going to be extreme heat that we're dealing with. You're going to want to take plenty of cooling breaks. You don't want to be outside for long periods of time. And of course, you're going to want to stay hydrated, drink plenty of water. Where do temperatures go? Well, they rise to the triple digits in areas like Ramona, El Cajon, 96, Mount Laguna, 78, and then Borrego Springs coming in with a toasty 113. So yes, we're running in the triple-digit teens as we head into tomorrow. Now along the coast, a little cooler, but still summer-like, where we're in the 80s throughout most of the week into the weekend. 83 Wednesday, but then we're dipping down to just 79, flirting with 80 still by Sunday along the coast. Inland, well, that's where temperatures are going to be staying in the 90s for the better half of the rest of the week, even into the weekend. Then we drop down to the upper 80s by Sunday. Now, areas in the mountains, well, you're staying in the 70s, even upper 70s, flirting with 80 by Wednesday, 77 Thursday, but then we're gradually going to start to come down again to the low 70s by Sunday. For the deserts, well, triple-digit teens going to be sticking with us through Friday. Then we drop down to a high of 109, not cool by any means, but still hot, 103 by Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
A new study links climate change to the intense heat waves happening around the world this month. Researchers say deadly heat in the U.S. and Europe could not have happened without the continuing buildup of warming gases in the air. The same team found the increase of gases has made another heat wave in China 50 times more likely to occur every 5 years.
Looking at the trends in the observations and then looking at how the events would have looked like using climate models, such an event would have been almost impossible without climate change. It shows that, you know, how much evidence there is on the link between climate change and heat events.
Climate scientists say this month's heat is likely the hottest Earth has been in about 120,000 years and easily the hottest of human civilization. The particles that wear off of your car tires as you drive are a huge source of microplastic pollution, and some of it is toxic. Now researchers at San Diego State University have identified 60 chemical compounds in tires. KPBS Sci-Tech reporter Thomas Fudge has the story.
3 years ago, researchers in Washington state identified a chemical derived from a common preservative used in tires. They found it was being washed into freshwater streams with other tire waste, and it was killing salmon before they could spawn. Maggie Stack and her research team at San Diego State found that one, called 6-PPD, but they found a lot more in the tire waste they tested.
That a number of chemicals that leached out from these tire particles have not been previously cited as being tire related.
And are those chemicals dangerous?
We did find that some of the compounds that haven't been previously associated with tires may be toxic.
Tire waste is generated constantly as tiny particles get worn off the tires where the rubber meets the road. Those particles, typically measured in microns, are swept into the watershed where they enter streams and ultimately the ocean. Natalie Maladenov took part in the study of tire wear.
Tires can be as little as 20% natural rubber, and then the rest is synthetic materials, synthetic rubber and other plastic polymers. So it is truly a source of microplastics to the environment.
Some of the chemicals researchers found in tire waste that they say may be toxic come from groups of compounds that are proven to be so. Amines, for instance, can damage the embryos of some aquatic life.
There it is.
Mladenov says exposure to the elements simulated by a device in her lab can cause some of those chemicals to become more dangerous.
Under natural conditions, sunlight can convert those compounds that leach out of the particles into new compounds, or what we call transformation products. And those could be even more toxic than the original compounds.
The research also showed that the micro size of these tire particles makes them even better at leaching chemicals once they're in the water.
So we were finding that smaller particles are potentially more toxic and more dangerous than larger particles.
Mladenov and Stack said particles from tire wear is a source of pollution not regulated by the government, at least not yet. But the particles remain abundant in the environment and are virtually invisible to the naked eye. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
I'm William Brangham. Tonight on the NewsHour, new research links recent heat waves with man-made climate change. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Well, the eyes of the soccer world are on San Diego today. Two of the most popular football clubs in the world are facing off at Snapdragon Stadium. Manchester United will face off against Wrexham AFC, and the game is a sellout with tickets on third-party sites going for $100 to $400. 37,000 fans are expected to pack the stadium.
I planned my summer trip around this game. We were supposed to go to Finland on July 22nd. When this game was announced for July 25th, I said there's no way. I got tickets for July 26th.
And the match starts at 7:30. Artistic freedom is so cherished a value that it's protected by the First Amendment. But a local artist is accusing San Diego International Airport officials of censorship. KPBS's Amitha Sharma explains.
Right after artist Evan Apodaca installed his video piece at the San Diego International Airport in February, a nearby man offered an ominous review.
He stood and watched the whole thing, and when he was done, he asked me, "Are you the artist?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, this is woke bullshit."
Apodaca's public artwork is entitled Monumental Interventions. The piece challenges the value of the military presence in San Diego. It uses voices of local residents to express the criticism, and through animation puts their words into the mouths of the international and local political figures shown as toppled, beheaded statues. There's former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher.
Do we want to continue to create an economy that believes in death and destruction?
The piece questions whether the military should even be honored, and said the early white settlements in San Diego were in part built on the backs of people south of the border and throughout the Pacific.
Hidden beneath the surface of the plan for a white utopia has been the cost of people and natural resources of various occupied territories south of the U.S. and throughout the Pacific.
Apodaca says within a month after his video piece was installed, the airport removed it from a wall near Gate 48 without warning or a reason. That is, until Apodaca went on Instagram and described what happened. On that same day in March, he says airport officials reached out to meet in person.
They said, "Evan, your project was not the same as what you had proposed."
Airport officials declined an interview. In a written statement, airport spokeswoman Nicole Hall wrote that Apodaca's video piece was brought down, quote, because the artwork delivered by the artist did not match the proposal that had been previously approved by the arts program. But Apodaca says officials left out what else they told him.
They said, the person that had made the comment to me about the artwork being woke bullshit was the same person whose comments had gone all the way up to government-appointed officials who run the airport, who had then told everyone below them in the art department
to do something about this.
San Diego is no stranger to public art controversies. Last year, some outraged Escondido residents wanted an exhibit named Three Slick Pigs to be removed. It featured pig statues in police uniforms dancing. Activists have also long pushed the city of San Diego to remove a statue of former Governor Pete Wilson because of his hardline stance on undocumented people. Both the pig display and the Wilson statue remained. Elizabeth Larison is with the National Coalition Against Censorship. She says resisting artistic censorship is especially important amid today's deep political divide.
We feel that we need to fight to protect access to works that contribute to the full cornucopia of ideas that contribute to a shared culture.
Larison argues in Apodaca's case, San Diego airport officials failed to make that fight. She studied the matter and says officials chose Apodaca's work for its creativity, artistic merit, cultural significance, and educational value. In an email last fall, Daniel Denner, curator of the airport's arts program, told Apodaca his work resonated with the airport's concept. He wrote, quote, "The panel felt your work was connected to our theme by the way we choose or not to choose to listen to things around us and how they inform our future." Apodaca says he was never asked to submit the final piece to airport officials before he installed it. Larison says it's unlikely that would have made a difference.
The visual and the artistic aspects are all very much still there and are not compromised. And yet the main difference is a slightly more critical viewpoint, which is explored through the voices.
And that's why she describes the airport's takedown of Apodaca's art as, quote, viewpoint discrimination, or, put another way,
this is a case of censorship.
Apodaca says he doesn't want to criticize airport officials, but
we need artwork that challenges us in the public. It shouldn't be hiding.
He says he hasn't given up on having the work displayed elsewhere. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, the Education Department has launched a civil rights investigation into Harvard University's legacy admissions practices. And KPBS Midday Edition is marking Disability Pride Month, a time to bring attention to issues impacting people with disabilities. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.